Welcome back, and thanks for being with us on this Monday morning here on Morning Live. Now, the presidency has officially confirmed that President Cyril Ramaphosa will announce a new national executive this evening. And it was reported last week that Ramaphosa had completed his consultations with the ANC's alliance partners on the cabinet reshuffles after meetings with Cosatu and the South African Communist Party. Now, this has long been anticipated, with the continued calls of a cabinet shakeup since the public volatility and unabated looting of South African businesses, among other national concerns. Now, in his weekly letters, President Ramaphosa has been assuring the nation that his commitment is to build an efficient, capable and ethical state that is staffed by men and women who are fit for purpose. Political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng joins us now to talk more about this. Asanda, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me.
Now, the president's office says that President Ramaphosa appreciates the importance of putting in place an executive that will build on the commitments that were made by the government for faster growth, for economic reform, employment programs, and of course, the ever-expanding infrastructure programs. Now, using this statement, what kind of an executive could South Africans expect from tonight's cabinet shuffle?
Well, I mean, this is the ANC. They literally have the same MO. And so we're likely to see some deputy ministers now being promoted to being ministers. They're probably going to retain at least half of the ancient cabinet that's averaging at age 64. And they're probably going to bring in one or two, maybe three, if we're lucky, new people just to pretend like there's going to be new blood. But we know that this is the ANC, and it's always a case of old wine in new bottles. And as I said, in another interview, that watching an ANC lineup, call up, or cabinet announcement has become very much like watching an Bafana lineup. You know that it doesn't matter what interesting names they throw in the hat. Ultimately, when it's time for game time and they have to be on the field and perform, they're going to fail dismally. And so this is what we are unfortunately waiting for, unless, I don't know, some miracle of God and we're all struck by lightning and the ANC actually delivers what we need, which is we need a cabinet that is going to spend the next year pushing to deliver services at a speedy rate so that they convince the voters who are tired, who are exhausted and quite apathetic at this point, that the ANC is worth bringing into power post-2024.
So you speak about seeing perhaps some deputy ministers promoted. Who do you think is likely to be promoted from those?
I mean, I couldn't say in terms of which ones in particular, but I know that, for in terms of my own wishes, I wish that, the president would literally give retirement to all the people who are post 60. Because, as I said, we're averaging the age of 63, 64. I was looking, just last night, just to remind myself of all these people. And I found that, the majority of the people who are in our parliament, in our cabinet, have been in parliament since 1994. That was almost 30 years ago. And so things have changed so much that these people are really not going to be able to take us into the next 30 years because they have been dragging us essentially into, into the demise that we have seen. And what we need particularly is a hectic and a serious revival, because we are in a post-COVID world and the rest of the world has reshaped the economies, has rethunk the economies, and has rebooted the economies. And we haven't been able to do that. And despite the fact that we're sitting with, $8.5 billion that's coming in for the just transition, which has the power to actually reboot our economy and redirect us all together towards a better and a brighter future, I don't see that happening because, as you're seeing on the screen now, Gwede Mantashe is likely to be retained because he's an ally of Cyril Ramaphosa. Pravin Gordhan should go as well because he's been there forever, but he's probably likely to retain. Same with someone like Andrew Mutsecha, who's been there since, been an MP, since back in the day, 1999 as well, and has been a cabinet member for more than 10 years. Also needs to go, but not likely to go. And there are many, many, many others. And unfortunately, even the young people, the ANC is a very interesting party that we often call for youth, but even the young people just failed dismally. Looking again yesterday, and I realized again that, they simply swapped around the Minister of Communications and the Minister of Small Business, Stella and the Minister of Communications. They swapped them around. They were both failing in the portfolios, and they just simply swapped them around instead of removing them and getting young people who are also capable to do the job. Very interesting person, the tourism minister, who ironically has been shunted around different portfolios and has barely spent more than a year or two in each portfolio, but somehow seems to come in and breathe new air and try to kind of do things that haven't been done before. So I'm interested to see where she's going to be put. But otherwise, in terms of the rest, I'm seeing a lot of retention. Maybe Pravin will go if we're lucky. Gwede is definitely going to be kept because he's an ally. But I'm also interested to see who the Minister of Electricity is going to be and what the kind of shuffle, pretend like we're doing something is going to be. As I said, we're probably going to see quite a number of deputy ministers being moved. Perhaps, I'm also interested to see who the new MPs that we recently brought into parliament are going to become cabinet members. And then also interested to see what's going to happen to the people who didn't make it to the NEC. Are they going to be retained? Because the president can hire people outside, even outside of the MPs. And also, what is likely to be the future for Patricia de Lille? Because she's not even an ANC member. She's a member of, she's the leader of the party Good. Is she going to be able to survive and be retained perhaps until 2024, just to show that the ANC is still willing to work with people outside of the ANC? Or what is that going to bring? Or are they going to bring in somebody from another party and surprise us all? So these are the things that I'm looking forward to, because although, as I've said, that the ANC is the ANC, whoever they bring us, institutionally they are corrupt, and whoever they bring is going to continue the corruption, especially when there's $8.5 billion on the line for the just transition, and possibly more money coming for our future great-grandchildren to continue to pay for.
Now, President Ramaphosa has been promising an efficient state staffed with men and women who are fit for purpose, so to speak. So in terms of, that particular factor, again, where would that come from? Because if you're talking about a reshuffle, what has generally been the practice is just to move people sideways, as you pointed out, change portfolios, but by and large, you would have the same people. Yes, there are a few vacancies, so we may end up with one or two, maybe three new faces at most. But other than that, how do you now talk about a cabinet that's fit for purpose when you are likely to retain most of the people? And does the president actually have to retain them, given that they serve at his behest?
He do serve at his behest, but the president always has to entertain ANC policy, and then he has to entertain his own stakeholders and his own backers and make sure that they feel like, they have been considered. And then you've got the alliance partners who, at this rate have killed completely the labor unions, because everybody is so busy chasing the possibility of becoming government that we literally do not have any labor protection in South Africa, or anybody fighting for the rights of laborers in South Africa. And quite interestingly, yesterday I was also reminded that Gwede Mantashe was one of the first union members to sit on a board in 1995, heralding this era of unions basically being in bed with capital and basically just abandoning workers. And it's very interesting to see how since that time, when we were all lauding and applauding that finally workers are going to get to have a say in the boardroom, that we didn't realize that what it meant is that worker rights and worker interests were going to actually be co-opted into capital and cast aside, which is what we see. And you look at any of, South Africa's industries, and you'll find that there's labor right flouting left, right, and center. And, in another life, in another era, we would need young people, more young people. I was looking at the stats again, and we're sitting at something like 6% of cabinet who is 35 and younger, while the majority are between 45 and 74 years, 74 years plus. And this is really quite unacceptable. People need to go into retirement. If we lived in another country, everybody post 60 would hopefully be retired to go and look after their grandchildren, to go and, plan their legacies or whatever it is that, people do in their retirement, or possibly just even give people the opportunity to be mentored. Because how are we going to deliver a new South African vision for the next 30 years? Because that's what we should be planning for. But we have people who are there who were part of trying to implement Vision 2020, and who lived in an era where COVID-19 was an impossibility. We need young people who have lived most of their lives in post-apartheid. We need young people who understand the cyber crimes that are so bad that they've led to us being grey-listed. We need people who understand illicit flows and the impact that they can have on the economy. We need somebody who's going to come in and have a plan for illegal mining, for crime, for unemployment. The other day, I was just looking again at Thulas Nxesi sitting in that labor position while also holding the other portfolio because it's been vacant for 2 years. And so, you sit with a person who is tasked with their most important. Youth unemployment is South Africa's, if ever there was a ticking time bomb after energy right now, youth unemployment is one, followed very quickly by crime. And the guy that's in charge of that gets given, beyond a ridiculous load of having 2 portfolios. What does that tell you? It tells you that it's not going to get solved. And then you've got Bheki Cele, who we know was removed because of corruption from being the National Commissioner, who then got promoted into being the Minister of Police. How can you take somebody who even has a whiff of corruption next to their name and put them in the one portfolio that requires the cleanest of clean human beings? And these are the indicators that, we're not going to see much of a difference, unfortunately. And that South Africans just have to wait to 2024 to actually do their best to deliver through the vote the best and the fit for cabinet, or at the very least fit for purpose and leadership with integrity, without corruption. And that is going to take us into the post-COVID world that everyone else in the world has already entered, except for us.
Well, we have to leave it there, but thank you so much, political analyst Asanda Ngoasheng, discussing the anticipated cabinet reshuffle that's scheduled to take place tonight.